Welcome to Real Estate and Money, a half-hour program on Rainier Avenue Radio World, designed to help you whether you're a buyer, seller, investor, or renter in real estate. Your hosts are two local professionals who will escort you on your journey. Violeta Strash, who has years of media advertising and marketing experience and brings this extensive knowledge to John L. Scott Real Estate and all our clients. And Tina Lombard, who is a mortgage loan originator with Cardinal Financial with over 28 years of experience. And now here's Violeta and Tina.
Well, hello, everyone. It's good to see you today, and thank you for joining us. Hello, V.
Hey, how are you?
Doing really good. Great. Yeah.
Awesome.
Just getting things going. But, before we get started, you want to make sure that you have our number so you can give us a call. The number to call here is 206-717-4490. Once again, that's 206-717-4490. And you're also welcome to call our numbers as you see them on the screen.
There you go. Can you see everything? Yep. All right.
Yes. So V, I love your background. I love your office, V.
I know. I wish I had it for real, but my virtual office. All right.
Great. So before we get started, we're going to go into our updates.
Daniel, can you pull up the video that I sent to you? There you go. Look at this, guys. Everything pending in the last 30 days in the 500 to a million range, upwards of 75% from your original listings. And currently, we're looking at 78% of current listings going pending, again, in the last 30 days. Look at the interest rates right now, 3.39, and still down from last year. So there you go, real quick, John L. Scott market update. And I want to add to that, as far as prices go, because everybody wants to know what price their house is, right? In King County. So we've sold 594, so year to year, April 6th through, what is it now? Oh, I'm sorry, the last Tuesday to this Tuesday, average price sold this year, 1,035,000, or let's say 36,000. And last year it was 898,000. That's a 15% increase in King County. Pierce County, last year we sold 295 homes, or I'm sorry, this year 295. This past week with an average price of $544, and last year $452, and that's a 20% increase. And then finally in Snohomish County, this past week, 216 homes sold at 713,000, and last year at this time 559,000, 28% increase. Can you believe that? That's just truly amazing. But market is hot still, and even with interest rates, now's a great time to buy. And sellers, let's get out there and get going. We need you, right?
We need you. If you don't need your house anymore,
we need your house.
If you're just maybe I should sell it. Maybe I shouldn't. Just sell it.
Get off the fence right now.
Yes. It's so crazy because so many people don't really, it's just one of those things you don't get around to. You get a new car, you get new shoes, you get new children sometimes, but to your house, you're like, I'm gonna hang on it forever. But you can change that too.
Yes. Here we go. Got to get my light a little bit better here. Okay.
Yeah. So today we're going to be talking all about appraisals.
Yeah, one of the most important people in a transaction, right? And we've got, go ahead, Tina, continue on.
Okay, so what is an appraisal? Well, the appraisal basically is a valuation of your home or said home that you're looking at. And why is it important to know the value of your home? There's a lot of different reasons. Appraisals sometimes are ordered by the professional helping you with your transaction, like your lenders or your realtor. A lot of times it's for your own personal reason. So let me go over just a few reasons why people do order home appraisals and why they are so important. A lot of times, first and foremost, people get appraisals done because they bought the house with less than 20% down. So if you put less than 20% down, you're paying what's called private mortgage insurance. So if you should ever default, the lender actually has insurance against that security. But if you don't put 20% down, you pay what's called PMI, and that can add anywhere from $50 to $350 a month, just depending on how much PMI you need. So when you do get to a point where you think you are at 22 or 21% of equity, you want to order an appraisal to verify that you do no longer need mortgage insurance. So that's one of the reasons. Another reason is because you are refinancing. So your previous home, when you bought the home, let's say the house was worth $550,000, and now you're refinancing, and maybe it's worth $750,000. You don't need mortgage insurance. You don't need all this other fun stuff. Well, how does the lender know that your house is actually worth that appreciated amount? And that would be by getting an appraiser or appraisal. Now, if you're thinking about selling, say you've had the house for 10 years, or your parents had the house when they were 10 years old, you really don't know the value of this house, and you don't want to have to split it through all your siblings and everything else, not knowing the real value, you may go ahead and get an appraisal just to find out what the true market value of your house is. Another thing here, it says also, when life takes a turn, like you're either going through a divorce, or you have a brand new child coming into the world, or there's an estate that has to be sold, somebody passes away, and for legal reasons and for personal reasons, you do need to find out the value of the house, and that's another reason why you need the house appraised. And quite often when I ask somebody, what's the value of your house, they say, well, the house down the street got 4 bedrooms, looks like they sold for $881,000. I'm a little nicer than them. My yard is cleaned up. I don't have any, cars sitting out in the front. So mine is worth $1.4 million. Okay. That's how people actually come at that conclusion, and that's not necessarily what other people would view it as.
Yeah.
So that's why you want to get a professional appraiser. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay.
So who do we have on the show today, V?
Well, we have Rob Berquist, Daniel, with Mainstay Appraisal Services, and waiting for him to get on the air here. I wanted him to talk a little bit about himself, what he does, and who he works for.
Mm-hmm.
Daniel, are you able to get Rob in?
Wow, that's quite the welcome.
Yeah, that is. You're an appraiser.
That's not typically the welcome I get, depending on what the value comes in at.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, it's kind of a mixed bag.
Yes.
So how does this work? Tina, what happens? Who sends out the appraiser, like Rob?
Well, actually, we lenders use an appraisal management company. We cannot have direct contact or direct choice of who the appraiser is, because in years gone by, lenders and appraisers actually had a connection, and they were like, "Can you get value? No. Do I need this value? Blah blah blah." So the government says that there's got to be a wall between us and the appraiser. So actually, on the behalf of the client, we call it appraisal management company, and they order out the appraisal.
That's halfway true.
That's halfway true.
Okay, so Rob, tell us about
true.
you and how you get contacted.
Well, there's probably 500 reasons to contact an appraiser. The only and best known for most people is the one that Tina mentioned, which is mostly right as a result of the Dodd-Frank Act, which got passed in 2010 after the Home Valuation Code of Conduct was codified by Congress. They said that to maintain appraiser integrity and make sure the appraiser doesn't have a dog in the fight or isn't being pressured by lenders or somebody who has a vested interest in the outcome of the value, they had to do one of two things. They had to either establish through an appraisal management company a roster of appraisers that the third party would then select the appraiser from for the process, or a lender such as Heritage Loans here locally. They maintain their own fee panel, but that valuation department has to be kept completely separate from the loan origination department. So somebody like Tina, who's a loan officer, could not call the person that orders the appraisal from me, from the valuation side of that department in that bank. So financial institutions can still maintain their own appraiser roster outside of the appraisal management model. But it just tends to be a bank by bank decision. Some of them over the last 10 years since Dodd-Frank was passed in 2010 have determined that it was initially they thought it would be financially cheaper for them to order it through an appraisal management company and not have to manage that process themselves. And then some people have now reverted back where they have their own appraisers in-house. And then if the appraisers in-house can't handle the volume or the complexity of the assignment, they'll go to somebody like me who's a fee appraiser who works on a contract basis outside of that, but is on their fee panel.
Okay, tell us about yourself.
I've been an appraiser for about 16 years now. I got into the market in California in 2005. It was when I got my license, and I became a certified residential appraiser, which is the next license level up. It requires more education and more hours. And in 2008, Fannie and Freddie and FHA through HUD came out and said, if you want to be able to still do FHA and VA insured loans, you have to be a certified residential appraiser. And so that means that we had to spend about another $3,000 in 2008 and take an additional license level, which consists of a series of courses. And then you also had to have additional field time in hours. So initially you get licensed with 2,000 hours. Then it was 2,500. You had to add another 500 hours. And then that has to all be reviewed by the state. Each state certifies and licenses appraisers individually. They have to consider what Congress lays out, and then they have to set up their own rules, which are governed state to state.
Okay.
Great. So Rob, can you tell me, does most of your business come from lenders and institutions, or do you get a great deal of your business from people who are actually homeowners?
The biggest percentage of my business personally comes through lending, but there are people who just refuse to even do lending work, and they're so busy doing either estate work, taxation work. They can be specialists in right-of-way work, where you'll have something like in our area right now where Sound Transit will come along and they'll hire up a bunch of appraisers because everywhere they want to put the tracks and the transit expansions in, that generally involves an appraisal where there's a taking that's going on. And so the government's coming along and saying, for the greater good, we're going to exercise eminent domain. And therefore, we have to give you what is determined to be fair market value for your property. And people argue over that every day. And so the appraiser, gets hired to come in and do an assessment of what that property's worth. And then, the homeowner, if they're losing the house because the rail expansion's coming through, that's part of that whole process. So there's a lot of different reasons outside of lending why people want to get evaluation.
Right. So Rob,
I asked Rob to help out with a client who had an estate sale going on. So he does that scope of work too, right?
Right. There's a lot of times people will, they'll have a family member pass and, or they'll be wanting to set something up for a trust. So sometimes an attorney will contact me and say, hey, we need to get a market value for right now. And, or somebody will say, oh, I had a family member pass 3 months, 6 months, a year ago, and they want to know what the value of the property was at that time, a retrospective appraisal, that's called, based on the date of death generally, so that they can deal with the estate. Siblings can work out what the value is there and how they're going to process all of that through probate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So really quick, Rob, I know the biggest thing on everybody's mind right now is that you're getting these houses and they're starting off at like maybe 900,000. And then by the end of the weekend, they're at 1.1 million. And they've got all these different appraisal gaps. And they've got all these different offers, cash and $40,000 over, $100,000 over price. How does that affect the appraisal? And what are you doing now?
Well, the hard part is it seems like last week the magic number was 111%. I was processing a lot of transactions where, not a month ago, I was doing primarily, 9 out of 10 transactions were refis. Now we're moving more towards, the purchases are starting to, creep up a little bit on that. Maybe it's 2 out of 10 instead of 1 out of 10. But the biggest challenge there is where, the appraiser comes in, the appraiser is looking at the value of the home based on a retrospective look. Mm-hmm. We're looking at what closed, preferably 3 months ago, but, it just depends on your market, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months ago. And then the market the pending listings are so far exceeding what the actual closed comps support in terms of a value, you end up with a big gap. And that's where a lot of people will be adding, listing agents right now are adding what they call a low appraisal addendum. And it's really a misleading, awful term. And I hate the fact that it's even used on those contracts. But because some people think, oh, my appraisal came in low, or you'll read comments on the MLS where agents will note that a deal fell through because the appraisal came in low, or they'll offhandedly comment the appraiser killed the deal because the appraisal was low. Well, the appraiser is, more like an umpire or a referee. They don't have a dog in the fight. They're supposed, what their task is and their scope of work is to present, what an objective value would be with an equally informed buyer and an equally informed seller. That's the mission. Mm-hmm. So, you come down with that number, and let's say it's 675 and the thing's under contract at listed at 675 and it's going to close at 830,000, which is one instance I'm working on recently out in Lake Marcel. So that's a huge gain, almost 123%. You've got an extra $155,000 worth of gap in there. And, now it's on the buyer to be able to close at that mm-hmm. level. Mm-hmm. And so the deal falls through sometimes because the buyer can't come up with the extra. If it's $675,000 and they were coming with, 67.5 as a 10% down, and now to compete with somebody who could pay cash for the whole thing, they have to bring an extra $155,000 to close. Some of them just can't do it. But that's what buyers are up against in the market right now. And that's where the term low appraisal comes from. And so the low appraisal addendum that will be listed oftentimes in the purchase and sales agreement will say, I had another instance out in Duval recently where the property was listed at $940,000. It was bid up to $1,050, and in the purchase and sales agreement, they had written in an agreement that if the appraisal came in low, the buyers had to be able to prove that they could come to close with an additional $100,000 over their down payment.
Right. That's common. That's with every purchase transaction almost right now. But really quick, we need to take a break. We'll be right back.
Here we go.
So now everybody's hearing a commercial?
Oh, well, not yet.
Yeah, we're waiting.
This is where they edit in the commercial?
Every Tuesday
That's a little promo for our show, Daniel.
Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Join your hosts, Violeta Strash with John L. Scott Kent North and Tina Lombard, who is a mortgage loan originator with Cardinal Financial. They'll help you navigate the waters of our volatile real estate market and offer you some guidance on how to make your hard-earned money work to make your dreams come true. Learn about current trends, get tips on financial matters, and have fun, interactive discussions about your home inside and out. That's real estate and money.
So
we're back.
Yeah. So Rob, are you getting any pushback from the listing agents or the buyer's agents at all, or they just throw their hands up? They understand exactly where you're at.
Typically, when I'm working with an appraisal management company, that I get the order from the appraisal management company, I send it back to them, then they deal with the lender. So oftentimes the lender will come back to the appraisal management company and say, whatever their complaint is, they'll ask for what is commonly known as a reconsideration of value. And they'll oftentimes, prior to the Dodd-Frank, you wouldn't see appraisers include what's called a farm list in the appraisal. I include a farm list in all my appraisals because it kind of alleviates some of those questions, right? And the goal is to touch the appraisal once. From a business perspective. So if you want to, alleviate a lot of those questions, I'll put a farm list in, and the farm list will show what I have set up for parameters, what I'm looking at. So, plus or minus 25% of the finished living area, a certain range for the lot size, a certain distance I'm looking at, a certain amount of time that I've been looking back at. And so that alleviates a lot of that if you're putting that in up front. And then most of the time when I get a question back, or what you might call pushback, it would be, from a direct lender, where they're contacting me and saying, I realize you put 2 pending sales into this report. You've got 4 closed sales. Your closed sales are running at a range that's $100,000 below what you say the, value of the appraisal's at. And I've made the case that the pending sales that I was able to confirm the actual closing price of those pending sales justifies a date of sale adjustment that increases the value of the sold comps, but those comps they sold, 6, 9, 12 months, a year ago. Even 90 days, the way the market is right now. You can have a big date of sale adjustment in there. And so, there's some pushback on that because lenders are concerned that, we're walking into a 2006 bubble and they don't want to be on the hook for an hyperinflated sales price race.
Right. So that's what we're finding. We're trying to tell a lot of our clients right now, if you only have like $10,000 or $15,000, for example, left over in savings, and there's going to be an appraisal gap of at least $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, don't even put the offer in. I mean, it's just, just depending. I had an appraisal done 2 weeks ago, and the appraiser actually called the listing agent and asked for how many offers she had on the property and also how many viewings she had over the weekend. Is that sound familiar to you, or do you understand why he was doing something like that?
I'd say the more experienced appraisers aren't that concerned about how many offers, because offers are just offers, right? They're not a contract. Yes, you have offers, but it's not a pending sale, like where somebody's agreed upon a purchase and sale agreement and they've obligated themselves. I'm more interested in the details about how much it'll go up. So if the agent feels like they're at a spot where they can disclose what the actual final price is going to be, and not all of them can or will, and I can get that information, sometimes people will divulge that, if they're, the day before close and they know there's nothing that's going to go wrong or not going to fall out. Sometimes they'll say, hey, yes, we were at 675, but this is actually closing at 830. There was no concessions. All the inspections were waived and we had 5 or 6 offers. And this was the best of that bunch. Or somebody will say we had 5 or 6 offers and the seller was really concerned about who the buyer was going to be. They want a certain buyer to have that property. They want a buyer that's going to be willing to agree to keep the property as it is to a certain extent, or not tear it down and develop it and turn it into duplexes. Or, there's a number of situations where the buyer will say, I want the seller to agree to do X. And so that'll also influence who the buyer picks, right? And that may not necessarily be the highest offer. It may be because, that seller was willing to agree to something that a different buyer wouldn't agree to with that seller. Absolutely.
I get a lot of military that'll do that. They actually, for whatever reason, if they see somebody that's military, they usually have a hot spot or a warm spot for them. But now, Rob, as far as COVID is concerned, about getting into people's houses where it's not vacant, has that stopped business at all? Has it slowed down business? Does it cause you to do anything different?
It interrupted the pattern, our sales pattern, our historical sales pattern. So in 2020, historically in the Northwest, you have a pretty consistent pattern, with the exception of since the 2008 to 2011 slide. But historically, if you look at over the long view, most listings occur right around Valentine's Day and on. Most closings occur June and July, go back and forth, which has more closings and which one has the higher transactional volume and in the highest medians and averages in the purchase and sale prices. That kind of all shifted this last year because so many people were concerned about even the home buying process, like getting out to go look at a house. They didn't want to risk exposure. And so as the agents encountered that, I'd say probably the first 90 days after it was declared a pandemic in March, agents got real creative and real aggressive about coming up with ways to market a home. But that shifted our sales season about a full quarter. And so a lot of where you would see transactions happen, now appraisers are struggling with the fact that most of that transactional volume shifted into the second and third quarters, where it normally would have been, first, second quarter, second, third quarter, maybe. Big emphasis on, more September, October, November, August, September, October, November. And normally in August, people are kind of hunkering down because school starts. Well, we didn't have school start.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
So
So that shifted the buying pattern. And so people who were not maybe necessarily open to moving in August were much more open to moving in August, whereas they would normally like to be done in June and July with their summer move. Right. So that kind of moved you to 8, 9, 10 as far as, where your volume went. And then we had kind of a traditional holiday slowdown because people weren't traveling for the holidays like they normally would. That would normally offset that some. But yeah, so November, December, January, October, November, December, that was kind of slower than normal. And also it's impacted our reduced listings. I was saying to Violeta that we were looking at Tacoma's hot market. And if you look at the 98407 fast stats that the MLS puts out for that, you can see this time last year, there was 24 inventory homes for sale. And in March 2021, there's only been 9.
Oh, okay.
So that's a 62.5% drop. That means, you have 2/3 less inventory to work with.
Absolutely.
Right? So you got a lot of dollars chasing very scant inventory.
Yeah.
Even almost a full year later since the pandemic was announced in March by the White House.
See, so it's still upside down and backwards.
So it's still upside down and backwards.
Yeah, so we have to say thank you for joining our show. We only have a few minutes left, so we have to close out. But please,
it went so fast. We're going to invite you back.
Good information,
Okay.
Rob. Good information. We have to have you back. This is just the tip of the iceberg. Yes. So, V, you want to close out for us really quick?
Thanks so much for having me.
All I've got right now is Rob. Real quick, give them your the name of your company, your phone number.
It's Mainstay Appraisal Services, and you can reach me 425-605-2296. And I primarily focus on King, Snohomish, Pierce, and Kittitas counties.
Okay, thank you, Rob. Thank you so much. And following our show today on our live jam session on Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone, and we will see you next week. Same time, same channel, Tuesdays, 2:30. Bye, everyone. Thanks, Rob.
You bet.
You've been listening to Real Estate and Money with your hosts, Violeta, Strash, and Tina Lombard. For more information, call 206-717-4490. That's 206-717-4490. Go to the Rainier Avenue Radio.world website to find the Real Estate and Money schedule, or tune in to our live show every Tuesday afternoon from 2:30 to 3. We will help you find your dream home.